Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, and I will worship Your holy name. The sun comes up, it's a new day dawning. It's time to sing Your song again. Whatever may pass, oh, whatever lies before me, let me be singing when the evening comes. Oh yeah, yes, the Lord, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, and I will worship Your holy name. Oh, You're rich in love, You're rich in love, You're slow to anger. Your name is great, and Your heart is kind. For all Your goodness I'll keep on singing. 10,000 reasons for my heart to find. Yeah. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, and I will worship Your holy name. Sing on that day, when my strength is failing, the end draws near, and my time has come. Still my soul will sing Your praise unending. 10,000 years, and then forevermore. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, and I will worship Your holy name. And I will worship Your holy name. Oh, I will worship Your holy name. Ooh.
Hey everyone, Pastor James here from the Lake Stevens campus. Very excited to join you today. Today is July 4th. Happy Independence Day to everyone. Happy America Day. Hopefully you guys are going to be safe today. You're going to have some fun hanging out with friends or just relaxing at home. But it's a day that we celebrate our freedom. It's a day that we celebrate the fact that you and I can worship God freely in our places of worship. I know there's stuff happening right now which makes it a little more difficult, but it doesn't change the fact that we have the freedom to do that. So I am thankful for that. With that, we're going to unpack a lot of different scripture today. So I want to just jump right in. If you didn't know, we are in the Bible in 1 Year YouVersion app. I know I have a paper app here, but that's because the Bible app is on my phone and I'm using my phone to record, so I can't record and use my phone at the same time, which is why I go with the paper. So we're going to start off in 1 Chronicles chapter 2. Now this may seem like there is not much here, because it's all genealogy. It's all the son of this and son of that, and this son beget that son, and that son beget that, and it just keeps going down the lineage. But this is recorded history that the Jewish people have found that it was important enough to keep a strong record that even to this day exists within the Jewish temples and in the Torah and some of these other places because of the importance of it. And it's really easy to gloss over it and go, okay, this is so-and-so's son, and he didn't really do anything, and they had this many kids, and it's really easy to gloss over it. But then sometimes you miss these little tiny nuggets that God puts in here. For example, in chapter 2, and this is in verse 3-ish, 3. I say 3-ish because it's right in the middle. Their names were this is the sons of Bathshua, Onan, and Shelah. And the Lord saw that the oldest son, was a wicked man, so he killed him, which we don't know exactly what he did, but we know that later on he gets married and he's just a terrible guy, and then he dies, and his brother's a terrible guy and he dies, and it's just like this one thing after another. But then a few verses down, and then verse 7, and Achan, who brought disaster upon Israel by taking plunder that had been set apart for the Lord, he's mentioned as well too. And of course you guys know that he was brought out in front of everyone, called out. He would not admit his guilt until it was finally, he was the last one standing. And he was stoned to death by the people of Israel because he had brought this curse and misery upon them for stealing from God, essentially. And I was reading these and I kept thinking, oh man, how would you like your footnote in history to be these two moments where you were a wicked man, so you died, or you stole from people and you died, and you stole from God, you died. And I thought, man, I would hate that if that was going to be the legacy, the footnote that I left in history, is that I was a wicked person or I did this terrible thing. And it makes me think about the fact that even though we do these terrible things, God that we serve, that we worship, that we love, our God is a God of second chances. And he allows every single person to have a second chance. Because even Achan could have turned back numerous times. He had 4 or 5 different opportunities to confess and say, it was me. I throw myself in front of the mercy of God and in front of you. He could have done that so many times, but he doesn't. And even he had an entire lifetime of being this wicked person, and he could have changed, but he chose not to. And what I want to do right now is I want you to hold that thought of change. And we're going to go all the way to the New Testament again. And we're going to go back to the Old Testament here in a second. But we're going to go all the way to the New Testament. This is Paul, and I'm not going to read anything here. But Paul is in the middle of defending his faith. He's in trial right now. The Jewish leaders, they hate him because he used to be one of them, and now he defends the people that he was in charge of destroying. If you guys know Paul's history, he hated Christianity as much as the next guy. And he was charged with taking them to prison and pulling them out, and his goal was to eradicate Christianity. But along the way he found Jesus and realized that God and Jesus had a plan and a purpose for him, and that his past doesn't have to dictate his future. And the reason I bring that up is here he is in this moment in chapter 23. There's 40 Jewish men that have taken a vow to kill him because they just hate him so much. And word gets out that this plot is happening. So, the Roman officer sends a bunch of guards to guard him. They take care of him, and they get him to the place that he needs to. And all of this stuff happens. It's all these moments that God provides for Paul over and over again. As you read through Acts and you read through his epistles, you realize how often God provided for him. And I think about that, and the reason I mention that is because, again, I said God is a God of second chances, and he will provide for you, and he has a plan and purpose for you. He has a plan and purpose for me. And I think a lot of times we get defeated by our mistakes. We get defeated by what we think we lack in ability or talent or spiritual gifts. And we think we lack these things, and as a result, we choose not to even do anything. We choose not to change. We choose not to move forward. We choose not to be the best version of ourselves that we can be for God. And I read these examples, and then I read again, let's go to the Old Testament. We're going to go into Psalms this time. This is King David. He is fleeing from Absalom. Absalom has revolted, is taking over the kingdom, and David, rather than fight his own son, decides to run. So for the second time in his life, he is running from the king, because Absalom was anointed king of a different part of Israel. So it was a mess. And this I am going to read, because this is the words of David. In the middle of this, in the middle of the storm, in the middle of running, in the middle of fear, he writes this: "O Lord, I have so many enemies. So many are against me. So many are saying God will never rescue him. But you, O Lord, are a shield around me. You are my glory, the one who holds my head high. I cried out to the Lord, and he answered me from the holy mountain. I lay down and slept, yet I woke up in safety, for the Lord was watching over me. I was not afraid of 10,000 enemies who surrounded me on every side." I read that and I'm so encouraged, because here's a man who made mistakes. He made a lot of mistakes. He made some really, really terrible mistakes. He killed an innocent man after he had taken his wife illegally, and then tried to cover up a mistake that he made with this man's wife by having him killed. He made mistakes with Absalom. He made mistakes with his other sons. And it goes to show that, again, no matter what you did, your future doesn't have to be limited. It doesn't have to stop. God can still do amazing things. And so I read about King David, who goes on, and Absalom ends up dying just a terrible way. He gets stuck in a tree and stabbed to death, which is just so bizarre to me. David resumes the kingdom. He sets up his kingdom for the next king, which is Solomon. He sets him up financially. He sets him up with a goal and a vision. And they do these amazing things together. And then, of course, Paul, who helped spread Christianity. Here's a guy that hated Jesus more than anyone, hated the idea of Jesus and Jesus' followers so much that his life goal was to take them hostage, take them prisoner, to beat them, to have them stoned, to have them tortured. And he turns and he follows Jesus. And so it doesn't matter what your footnote may currently be, or maybe what it was a few years ago, or 10 years ago, or 20 years ago. Today you have an opportunity to turn to God. You have an opportunity to follow God, regardless of what that was, to change your footnote. Because Paul's footnote could have easily been, if they had continued to record this, and there was a man named Saul, and he persecuted Christians, and he killed hundreds of thousands of innocent Christians, and that could have been his footnote. But that wasn't. His footnote is probably greatest missionary for Christianity. It's probably faithful man, great teacher. I mean, all of these are different footnotes, because he decided, he made a choice. He had an experience with God, but even after that experience with God, he chose to continue to follow God. So my challenge to you today is you have an opportunity, you have a freedom that we're celebrating today to choose God. Regardless of what you have done or haven't done, maybe there's stuff that you should be doing that you've been putting off. You have an opportunity now, today, you have the freedom to change your footnote, to be the person that God wants you to be the voice he wants you to be the hands that he wants you to be. So that is my encouragement to you. That is my charge to you. That is what I hope that you hear, that God is calling you to something else, that he has a plan for you, he has a purpose for you, and he just needs you to say, yes, Lord, and go forward. Have a great day today. Again, be safe out there. Have a lot of fun, and I will see you guys next time.